Hi, Ghost Keyboard here. Welcome to a new episode of Mini PC Battle. Today we are facing the two best AMD and Intel low-budget processor in the mini PC market with the GMKtec G10 and the AceMagic Vista. V1 series has been around for quite some time now, unlike the AMD 3500U processor, which is a newcomer in this low-budget niche. At $189 and $169, those two mini PC models are incredible values. Both models are extremely small. At first sight, they could look like clones. I have already reviewed both models on my channel, but today, review is more than individual reviews of both models. It's a battle which goal is to highlight the strength and weakness of both models with comprehensive test and visuals. So without further ado, let's start the battle. We start with the hardware specification. Here, the main three key points are the numbers of CPU cores, the TDP, and the internal graphics processing unit. The AMD processor is running at a higher 25 sustain watt, and the Intel N150 at 15 watt, both at performance mode system configuration. We know that Intel N series has proved to have incredible performance efficiency at low wattage. It's just too bad that Intel hasn't been able to replicate this out of ordinary efficiency on their higher-end CPU's models. The second key point is that the AMD chip has 4 cores with 8 threads, where the Intel processor is a 4 cores, 4 threads CPU. The last key point is the superior graphic performances of the Vega 8 over the Intel Graphic iGPU, which is giving the GMKtec G10 more flexibility in light gaming and console emulation, as we're going to see later in the review. Now let's see the inside of these models. First of all, the GMKtec G10 have a way more easiest way to access the RAM and the SSD than the AceMagic Vista V1, as you can see in this footage. The G10 has 2 PCIe NVMe M.2 slots, which is something that I really like to see for either storage upgrade or eGPU setup. Secondly, the G10 comes with dual RAM, which is also a must-have feature for any mini PC model. Single RAM channel are so detrimental to performances accepted than here the N150 is by nature a single RAM module processor, so there is no regret here. On the storage side, the G10 comes with fast PCIe3 SSD storage, whereas the N150 comes with slower SATA SSD, which is a very common thing with these low-budget Intel N series models. Note that the G10 has also an SSD heatsink, which is also a nice feature as this model is running hotter than the N150. Extra cooling items are always welcome. About the port interface of these models, the main difference is the Type-C port on the G10, which support power delivery to a portable monitor. Overall, both models have 4 USB port mixing USB 3.2 and USB 2 ports. Now the noise test. I am running these tests in a CPU load environment with CPU-Z stress test. Both models are quiet with an advantages for the N150, which is operating at a lower TDP than the G10. Both model system configuration are set to performance mode. The idle temperatures are fines on both systems, but the G10 will show higher temperature once it's kick in for quite anything. Browser, double-click on folder, or whatever. The AMD processor is just more aggressive with its CPU, that's why it's scoring higher in multi-core test, as we're gonna see next. Anyway, both models are showing idle temperatures around 55 degrees Celsius, which is fine. Power draw is identical around 10 watts on both models. I want to go quickly through the CPU benchmark. The main idea here is that the AMD processor is showing higher temperatures in CPU load environment. Remember that the AMD chip is running with more watt than the N150. Both models have pretty similar build, approximately the same size and relying on single cooling fan with a bit more airflow optimization for the G10. However, the N150 is showing a constant advantage in single core test. What is bothering me here is that accepted CPU-Z, none of the other benchmark is clearly showing in its results the G10 multi-core advantage over the N series, which is blatant in real-world test. So, yeah, kudos to CPU-Z for being the most realistic benchmark amongst them all. Here, Passmark is compiling several benchmarks in a single score, but detailed CPU benchmark is also available. Here we have a 27% performance boost for the G10, which is not making much sense regarding the previous Cinebench and Geekbench results, except if you are considering CPU-Z multi-core result. Synthetic benchmarks like these are a must for any serious reviews. But sometime just like here, we are obtaining results that are too different to describe with certainty the performances of one model over the other. That is why we are going to scratch the surface and get into real-world test for a more realistic overview of each model strength and weakness. Before moving to real-world test, we are going to quickly check some graphic performance benchmark, and we start here with Furmark with a 50% performance advantage for the G10, which was expected regarding the processor specification viewed at the beginning of this review. Next, we are moving over 3D Mark benchmark. And here again, the superiority of the G10 graphic performances is displayed in every test. Now we are moving over the real-world test, and we start with something that everybody is familiar with, file compression or decompression like here with WinRAR. Here we can see that the G10 processor is actively more efficient with close to 25% faster operation than the N-series processor. In this following test, I am running the Aquarium benchmark with 10,000 fish setting, a 4K YouTube video, a 1080p clip playback with GOM media player, and I run RetroArch emulation, all at the same time. The AMD processor is handling all these operation quite well with a remarkable 70% CPU usage. Now I am running the exact same test with the N-series. Here the N150 processor is choking at 100% usage in multitask operations. YouTube 4K playback is lagging, and so is the Pot Player Media Player 1080p clip. Regarding this specific test, Cinebench and Geekbench did not give us relevant results, unlike CPU-Z and Passmark, which have given us around 25% multi-core boost for the G10 over the N-series. Now I would like to ask you to please take a moment to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the comment if you appreciate those mini PC battle format videos. Let's resume the battle with a software installation time attack. Here I am installing CapCut video editing app. This is the kind of app where the N-series processor is going to take its revenge over the AMD chip, but the revenge just won't happen yet during this installation process, as the AMD chip proved to be a huge 100% faster than the N150. Now let's do some timeline scrolling test with CapCut. Here we are working on a 1080p video footage, and the Intel N150 superior single-core performance is finally on display. The N150 timeline scrolling feel more smooth and responsive. Later, we are going to do the same test with a 4K video, and the N150 better performance will be even more obvious. Here I am doing a rendering test at 1080p with the HVEC codec with higher bitrate setting. Again, the Intel N-series is showing all its strength in video and audio encoding, with a big 100% performance advantage in rendering. Now at 4K timeline scrolling, the superiority of the N150 is even more obvious going back and forward in the timeline. The AMD chip is lagging and freezing at 4K timeline scrolling. Now we are going harder on rendering test with this 4K video encoding. Here again, the N150 is faster, but we went from 90% faster at 1080p to 26% faster at 4K. This value is matching the 25% performance advantage seen in single-core benchmark results in Geekbench and Cinebench test earlier in the review. Now let's move to retro gaming. I won't spend much time on this topic. If you want more game tests, you can go watch each model's review on my channel. Essentially, both models are equally running retro console emulation, with the exception of the Nintendo Switch for the N150. Even if the G10 can run Switch game, it comes with some limitation. Some title will not run smoothly. Although the N150 can run retro gaming, it won't be able to stream your gameplay on OBS at the same time as the CPU resources dedicated to emulation will be too much for handling streaming. On the other hand, the G10 can handle both retro gaming and streaming at the same time because of its higher performance in multitask. At Minecraft, Bedrock version would just not launch on the N150. On Minecraft Java version, the G10 is performing much better with double the FPS displayed on the N150. Now on light gaming. Just like retro emulation, you can watch a more in-depth game testing on the G10 and AceMagic N150 dedicated reviews on my channel. Basically, the G10 is offering a larger game catalog at higher graphics setting. Of course, we are talking about light gaming on older titles. The G10 ain't gonna do the cut for AAA gaming. Let's wrap up this review with the pros and cons of these mini PCs. Both units are very well priced, and you can't honestly ask for more at that price tag. Both models can handle light PC tasks with ease. Web browsing, video streaming, and working on document are feeling flawless. Both models can run retro console emulation perfectly even with shaders. However, the G10 is a bit more interesting as it can add the Switch emulation to its catalog, but with some caveat. The superior graphic hardware of the G10 is also displayed on old PC gaming with a much larger catalog and higher graphic setting. The N150 shines in its low power consumption and in single-core applications. Although the G10 is more efficient in multitask and feels faster, in editing application, the N150 will show noticeable higher performances. The N150 Intel QuickSync feature is also more efficient if you are willing to set up a media server like Plex. If you have appreciated this video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Bye.